Welcome back to ESPR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Paul Kelly. This is a reaction video to the news that Anthony Joshua will fight Otto Wallin on December the 23rd in Saudi Arabia. Paul, good to be joined by you, as always. I know you're a big Anthony Joshua fan. First question I've got for you here is, are you looking forward to this fight, or is it in the back of your minds that really we should be seeing Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, thanks, mate, for having me on. I think it's a mixture of a couple of emotions, to be honest with you. I think, for one, I just want to start by saying, I'm glad that we're seeing Joshua again before the end of the year. That's three fights in a year. Again, another one announced on relatively short notice, if you consider when that Dylan White fight was announced, and then obviously it was ended up being Hellenius. Good to see him active. Whether or not you agree with what you think of the opponents he's fighting. Um, Activity is key, and clearly for him, he wants to be more active than a lot of the other world champions and certainly elite heavyweights. But yeah, obviously disappointed that it's not Wilder. But obviously the um, you're hoping that after December 23rd, provided they both win, provided they don't come out with any bad scars or whatever, then that surely is all roads lead to Joshua Wilder, or Wilder Joshua, whatever you want to call it, in early to mid 2024. And so, it's one of them where you're taking this, hoping that it's definitely Wilder Joshua next. You're hoping there's an agreement in the contract somewhere that we'd see that one next. So yeah, obviously slightly disappointed, but at the same time, I think this is a really good fight. I think I'm sure we'll come on to it and dissect it a little more here in a second. But I actually think it's a really tough fight, and is one that you got to give credit to Joshua for, because it's a tough night's work, Otto Wallin.
Absolutely. Otto Wallin currently with a record of 26-1, with that one loss coming to Tyson Fury. Obviously gave Tyson Fury a good fight a few years ago. Tyson Fury suffered a bad cut. Another time that fight could have been stopped. So yeah, Otto Wallin is obviously coming off that really good win against Murat Gassiev back in September. Actually, quite a quick turnaround, really, when you think about it. 30th of September, fighting Murat Gassiev in a fight that was a 50-50 fight, and then December 23rd facing Anthony Joshua. So it's not what we're used to seeing in the heavyweight division, which is activity, which is good to see. So credit to both men. I do want to ask you, Paul, how much of a step up do you think this is for Joshua compared to the fights he's had this year, if at all? Fought Jermaine Franklin earlier this year, beat him clearly on points. We all know the story with Dillian Wright, Robert Helenius. Can debate over how much of a step down or step up Robert Helenius was from Jermaine Franklin. But how much is a step up is Otto Wallin from those two guys, if at all, in your opinion?
Yeah, mate, I think you've got to say it is a big step up. A lot of people would have Otto Wallin and just outside, maybe even inside the top 10. If you're having doing a general heavyweight rankings, he's up there. He's definitely in the top 15 heavyweights in the world, in my opinion. So yeah, I think it is a step up when you look at those two. Obviously, Franklin, nobody knew who he was, let's be honest, before the Dylan White fight. He only got the Joshua fight because he performed reasonably well against White, and a lot of people thought he maybe deserved the nick it on the night. Didn't. And then obviously it's one of those where, yeah, you maybe think Leonis is a B level fighter and he's over the hill now and he's old, but there's not a lot you can do when your opponent pulls out, or it you have to, get a new opponent within 10 days or a week or whatever it was of the fight. There's only a select few opponents you can have. So credit for that show still going on, obviously on in August. But yeah, this is definitely a step up, mate. 100%. I'm under no illusions that this is going to be a tough night for Anthony Joshua, and it's definitely a fight where I'm not surprised. I know there's even a few members of ESPR that think that Joshua could and potentially will lose this fight. So yeah, I think it's a really good fight, mate, and 100% a step up.
Yeah, definitely. Otto Wallin again is 6'5.5" according to BoxRec. You never quite know with BoxRec heights how accurate it is. Otto Wallin was at Tyson Fury versus Dillian White, who was actually sitting with the media people such as ourselves. So I've come up quite close to him, and he is a tall bloke. He is 6'4", 6'5", so around the same height as Joshua. If you look at his recent weight, came in at 237 pounds in his last fight against Gassiev. Joshua, I think, was in around the 250 mark against Selenius. So Joshua would, he's obviously slightly taller, will come in, you would expect to come in heavier as well. Otto Wallin is a southpaw. And Joshua's record against southpaws, obviously, he's lost twice to Usyk, beat Charles Martin a few years ago, who's a southpaw. Um, does that concern you in the sense that Joshua is fighting a southpaw, hasn't had loads of notice, and is up against a good southpaw as well? Does that kind of add something to your worries at all, Paul?
I mean, I think it's probably a little less than ideal, but in the sense of, does it really worry me? Not overly. I think when you're, there's those three, well, those two examples, obviously Usyk twice and then Charles Martin, talking about completely different level. Southpaws there, obviously. Charles Martin, decent fighter, but nowhere near the level of Usyk. Usyk, an elite fighter, an elite southpaw. Is Otto Wallin an elite southpaw? That remains to be seen. I don't personally think so, but he's a very good, incredible southpaw. If you're, he's definitely a better southpaw than Charles Martin is. So probably less than ideal, I should say. You know what? At the time of the fight getting announced, we're what, only 5 max 6 weeks away, really, from the fight. So it's not a whole lot of time to be training for one man, considering it's a southpaw and the majority of fighters are orthodox. I know Joshua is obviously very diligent, stays in the gym, is always training, blah blah. But it isn't ideal. I think obviously now that he's just got what, a month and a half or whatever it is, a month and a few days to just train for a southpaw when that's the majority of people are obviously orthodox. However, he has had those two camps, particularly just for a southpaw with the Usyk fights. But then obviously Usyk's a completely different kettle of fish than most other southpaws. So yeah, I think maybe to answer your question, mate, it's probably doesn't worry me as such, but it's slightly less than ideal.
Yeah, yeah, we shall see. Looking forward to it. Just to round things off, Paul, as always, 5.5 weeks out. Going to ask for your prediction here. What do you think happens on December 23rd?
Oh, put me on the spot. I mean, you know me. I'm going to back Anthony Joshua, of course. I think that the only thing I would say is the only caveat to this is I think the longer this fight goes on, the worse it is for Joshua. I
Mm.
think Joshua needs to make a dent in Usyk. Sorry, a dent in Wallin. Within 6 7 rounds. If not, and I think Wallin shown that he's a very good boxer, and like I didn't think he would beat Gassiev, to be honest with you. So I had to eat a bit of humble pie there. So I think Joshua will stop Wallin somewhere around the middle, same similar to maybe round 7 or 8. But see if we're getting into rounds 9, I'm starting to worry a little bit, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think maybe Joshua mid to kind of rounds 8 9 maximum stoppage. Any further than that, I don't see it being a stoppage. So I'll save Joshua around 6 7 8.
Fantastic, Paul. Good to be joined by you. I'm sure we'll speak about this fight again. But in the meantime, yeah, hope you're all good, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, mate.